Something more phenomenal is happening at Discovery Zone. The excitement of the Power Rangers movie is coming to DZ, and kids can get in on the action. When you buy a Discovery Zone Summer Power Pass, you'll get a Power Rangers wrist activator. Power on!
How did the biggest indoor playground in America go from hundreds of locations and backing from giants like McDonald's and Blockbuster to disappearing almost overnight? Now, if you grew up in the 1990s, there was a place that felt larger than life. It was a maze of colourful tubes, giant slides, endless ball pits, and the sounds of dozens of kids running in every direction at once. Birthday parties felt bigger there, weekends felt more exciting there, and for millions of kids, Discovery Zone wasn't just an indoor playground, it was the place to be. And then, one day, it was just gone. The signs came down, the buildings closed, the giant roller slides disappeared. A company that once seemed unstoppable vanished so completely that many people today can hardly believe how big it actually was. So, what happened? How did Discovery Zone become one of the fastest-growing family entertainment businesses in America, and why did it suddenly collapse just as quickly? Now, the story begins in 1989 with a surprisingly simple idea. In Kansas City, fitness center owner Ronald Match was discussing children's health with a gymnastics coach when an interesting observation came up. More and more kids seemed to be less active than previous generations, and that conversation sparked a bigger question. What if exercise could be disguised as fun? And instead of creating another gym or sports program, Match envisioned a giant indoor environment where kids could climb, crawl, run, jump, and play for hours without realizing they were getting exercise. The first Discovery Zone location opened in a Kansas City suburb in 1989, and it was an instant success. Kids absolutely loved it. Parents absolutely loved it, and the concept seemed almost foolproof. Inside were massive play structures, ball pits, tunnels, climbing areas, trampolines, and of course slides. And everything was designed to keep children moving. Parents saw it as a safe place where kids could burn off energy. Kids saw it as their own personal playground paradise, and the timing couldn't have been any better. America was entering a period where family entertainment centers were becoming increasingly popular. Parents were looking for indoor activities that worked regardless of weather, and Discovery Zone offered something that felt fresh and exciting. Demand, of course, then exploded, and within just a few years, new locations began appearing across the country. The company adopted an aggressive franchise model, allowing rapid expansion into new markets, and investors quickly noticed. One of the company's early supporters was tennis legend Billie Jean King, whose involvement helped reinforce the brand's active lifestyle image. And more importantly, serious money started flowing into the business. By 1993, Discovery Zone had expanded to more than 60 locations and showed no signs of slowing down. And then something happened that seemed like a dream at the time. McDonald's entered the game. So interestingly, recognizing the popularity of indoor play centers, the fast food giant launched its own competing concept called Leaps and Bounds. And suddenly, Discovery Zone wasn't just competing against local businesses, it was battling one of the largest companies on Earth. So, to fight back, Discovery Zone needed capital. And they found it. A major investor named Don Flynn, one of the original investors behind Blockbuster Video, acquired the company and began fueling expansion. And soon after, Blockbuster itself invested millions of dollars into Discovery Zone. And then came the public offering. When Discovery Zone went public in 1993, investors couldn't buy shares fast enough. The stock surged on its first day of trading, raising more than $50 million for the company. Wall Street loved the story. A fast-growing family entertainment company, an expanding national footprint, backing from major corporations. Everything seemed perfect. The growth accelerated. And that's actually where the problems began. By 1994, Discovery Zone had reached its peak. In a stunning move, the company actually purchased the entire Leaps and Bounds chain from McDonald's, and overnight, one of its biggest competitors disappeared. Now, the acquisition dramatically increased Discovery Zone's size and reach, and at the same time, Blockbuster increased its ownership stake, and soon afterward, Blockbuster itself was acquired by media giant Viacom. So suddenly, Discovery Zone found itself connected to one of the largest entertainment companies in the world. At its peak, the company operated more than 300 locations. Now, the future seemed limitless at the time, but behind the scenes, the business was starting to crack. The biggest problem was growth. Discovery Zone had expanded at an incredible pace, but many of its locations weren't making enough money to justify the costs. New stores required enormous investments in real estate, construction, equipment, maintenance, staffing, and insurance. And every new location came with significant expenses. Those expenses were piling up quickly. The company was spending money faster than it could earn it, and by 1994, despite all its expansion, Discovery Zone reported losses exceeding $10 million. Now that should have been a warning sign, but instead, the company kept growing. Corporate ownership created another challenge. The original leadership team that understood the business was gradually replaced by executives from larger entertainment companies. Managing a video rental chain is very different from managing hundreds of indoor playgrounds filled with children. So the priorities began shifting. Instead of focusing on operations, safety, and customer experience, attention increasingly turned toward branding and marketing opportunities. Now, meanwhile, customers were beginning to notice problems. Some locations became difficult to maintain properly. Parents complained about cleanliness. Stories about dirty ball pits and poorly maintained equipment started spreading. Whether those stories were always fair or not didn't really matter. Perception is what matters, and Discovery Zone's image was starting to suffer. Then there was another issue that the company struggled to solve: repeat visits. The first trip to Discovery Zone felt magical. The second trip was exciting. The 10th trip, not quite as much. You see, unlike amusement parks that constantly introduced new attractions, most Discovery Zone locations stayed largely the same. And once kids had explored the tunnels, conquered the slides, and played in the ball pits, there wasn't always a strong reason to come back repeatedly. Business became heavily dependent on birthday parties and weekend traffic, and weekday attendance often struggled. As profits declined, debt continued rising, and by 1995, the situation had become pretty serious. The company's stock price collapsed, losses mounted, and Discovery Zone was reportedly burning through millions of dollars every month. Then came the breaking point. On March 26, 1996, Discovery Zone filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The company was carrying more than $360 million in debt. Rapid expansion that once looked brilliant had become a financial disaster. Stores closed, employees were laid off, investors fled. Now, for many businesses, that would have been the end. But Discovery Zone wasn't quite finished yet. A private investment firm stepped in with plans to save the company. And after emerging from bankruptcy in 1997, Discovery Zone attempted a major comeback. Now, the strategy seemed logical. If kids were getting bored with the traditional format, the company would add new attractions: laser tag, karaoke, arts and crafts, additional entertainment options designed to broaden the audience. The changes created a new problem. The brand started losing its identity. Originally, Discovery Zone had been about active play. Now it was trying to become several different things at once. Parents weren't sure what it was anymore. Kids weren't sure either. And the core financial problems never really went away. The facilities were still expensive to operate, attendance was still inconsistent, and the debt still weighed heavily on the company. So, less than 2 years later, disaster struck again. In April 1999, Discovery Zone filed for bankruptcy a second time. And this time, there would be no comeback. The closures happened quickly. Many locations shut down with little warning. Families arrived expecting birthday parties only to find locked doors and notices posted in the windows. For countless kids, Discovery Zone didn't gradually fade away, it simply disappeared. And then came the final blow. CEC Entertainment, the parent company of Chuck E. Cheese, purchased many of Discovery Zone's remaining assets. Some locations were converted into Chuck E. Cheese restaurants, most were simply liquidated. And by 2001, Discovery Zone was effectively gone. The colourful tunnels, the giant ball pits, the roller slides, all of it vanished. So what caused the rise and fall of Discovery Zone? Well, the rise came from a brilliant idea introduced at exactly the right time. Parents wanted safe indoor entertainment. Kids wanted giant playgrounds. Discovery Zone delivered both better than anyone else. But the fall came from expanding too quickly, taking on massive debt, struggling with operational challenges, and losing focus on what made the concept special in the first place. But despite its collapse, Discovery Zone left behind something many companies never achieve: memories. For an entire generation of kids, Discovery Zone wasn't a business. It wasn't a stock symbol. It wasn't a bankruptcy case. It was birthday parties, it was roller slides, it was ball pits, and afternoons that seemed like they would never end. Some companies are remembered for their success, others are remembered because they became part of a childhood itself. And for millions of 90s kids, Discovery Zone will always be remembered as the ultimate place to play.